Hello and welcome back. Now that we have moved past actually creating an EC2 instance and again further understanding how EC2 instance works in the scope of VPC networking, now let's talk about some of the other features which are great about using EC2. In this particular lesson, we're going to talk about EBS snapshots. So, what exactly are EBS snapshots? Well, snapshots are point-in-time backups of EBS volumes that are stored in S3. So it's important to remember that snapshots are only for EBS or elastic block store volumes, not instant store volumes. Some really important properties to understand about EBS snapshots, and this can be a little confusing at first, so I'm going to try to walk you through it here. First, the thing to understand is that snapshots are incremental in nature. So a snapshot only stores the changes since the most recent or last snapshot. This does reduce costs by having you only pay for the storage for the incremental changes between snapshots. Now, since EBS snapshots are stored in S3, anything that you store in a snapshot is subject to standard S3 pricing. However, you should know that if the original snapshot is deleted, all data is still available in all other snapshots. So even though snapshot storage only charges you for the amount of incremental data in each snapshot, all prior data is still there. So I want you to kind of walk through this again with me. So when you first take a snapshot, so let's actually do that over here. We can take a look at our snapshots by clicking here, and we see that we have no snapshots. So what we want to do is we want to create a snapshot. The first thing that we need to do is choose a volume, and we currently only have 2 EBS volumes available. We can see them listed here, and we can actually back out of here, go back over to volumes here, and these are the 2 EBS volumes that are attached to our one EC2 instance. So our EC2 instance here has 2 volumes attached. We have the root device, and then we have the additional EBS volume that we attach. And by clicking on either one of these, we can see what they are. So here it clearly states that it's EBS, and the other one also EBS, but it also will tell you some other attributes, like whether or not we decided that the EBS volume should be deleted upon termination of the EC2 instance. Obviously, for the additional volume that we added, we set that to false, but for the root device, we actually set that to true. So what we want to do now, looking back at our volumes, maybe we actually want to label these volumes, which one is root and which one isn't. So going back to our EC2 instance, under block devices here, we can actually see what the EBS ID is, and we see this one ends in D06. So we'll go back to our volumes. Let's open this up here. D06, so this is our root. So let's label this as root. And we'll label this as secondary. Okay, so now those are nice and labeled for us. So now let's say we want to make a snapshot of our secondary EBS device. We'll go back to snapshots, click on create snapshot, and under volume now, we do see that it's labeled for us so we can see which one we are choosing. We'll choose secondary. We'll give it a name. We'll call this secondary backup or secondary snapshot. 1. We'll call it snapshot 1. We can give it a description. We'll just highlight this and give it the same as the name. And then click create. So now what it's doing is it's creating a snapshot or a full backup of that particular volume. Now this is the first snapshot. So the first snapshot is going to encompass, and we're going to be charged for all of the data that is currently on this volume. Now what's important to understand is that if I make a change to this volume, let's say I add one file to this volume, and then I go in and I decide to make a second snapshot. That second snapshot, in terms of its size and what I'm going to be charged for, is only going to be the difference between this snapshot and the new one that I created, which is only that one file that I've added. So the size that I will be charged for my second snapshot will only be the amount of data that that one file takes up. However, if I were to then delete this original snapshot, I still could use the second snapshot to fully restore the volume. So even though I'm only being charged on that second snapshot for the difference between the first one and the second, it still actually does contain all of the original data, so I can still make a full backup. I'm just not being charged for it. So a few other important notes to understand about snapshots, and that is frequent snapshots of your data increases durability, so it's highly recommended. Also, when a snapshot is being taken against an EBS volume, it can degrade performance. So snapshots should only occur during non-production or non-peak load hours. Also, what's great to do is that using a snapshot, you can create a volume from it. So I can use this volume here, and by clicking on Actions, I can create a volume, and I can create a whole new volume with the data that is stored in this particular snapshot. So again, if I lose my EC2 instance and the volume that was attached to it has been terminated as well, I can always come back in here, and using snapshots, I can use them as a great backup resource to provision a new EBS volume and then reattach it to a new EC2 instance and have the same data. So that is a quick summary of what snapshots are and what you need to know. And just remember that snapshots are incremental in nature. The snapshots are stored in S3, and you are only charged for the changes between one snapshot to the other. However, each snapshot does, under the hood, contain all the other information or all the other data that is stored on the volume that we just made the snapshot from. So with that, we will conclude this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.